welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do want to remind you, if you haven't heard the news, the big news is that this show is moving time. So this is our last night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We are moving drastically to 11 a.m. mornings. I have to become a morning person. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, because I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in the Pacific Coast, so it's early for me. But we're doing that starting on Monday. So the show will be earlier in the day. So if you watch it at this time, you'll still be able to get it at this time. It just won't be live. It's going to be live earlier in the day. And then what's great about that is you can pick and choose when you want to watch the show. And we do hope that you continue watching. So starting on Monday, when we come back over the weekend, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern is the new time for this show. Thank you guys so much for being here and watching. Now, some of you may be familiar with the murder of Seth Rich. Seth Rich was a 27-year-old staffer for the DNC when in July of 2016, he was fatally shot in the back twice at 4:20 a.m. in a Washington, D.C. neighborhood. Now, the official story is it was a botched robbery. However, many people are suspicious and believe that he was murdered for what they believe is leaking the DNC emails to WikiLeaks. Now, the DNC and media establishment for years claimed that it was the Russians who hacked into the DNC and handed the emails over, but they've never been able to prove it. So with us tonight is attorney Ty Clevenger. Now, Ty is the civil rights attorney leading the charge on getting to the bottom of who supplied the DNC emails to WikiLeaks during the 2016 election. And at one point, a judge ordered the FBI and the DOJ to provide all they had in regards to Seth Rich, and the FBI responded by requesting 66 years before releasing the information. Nothing suspicious there. Well, the latest big news is that just a few weeks ago, this last November 29th, so it was just right around Thanksgiving, a federal judge ruled that the FBI must hand over Seth Rich's personal laptop, work laptop, a DVD, and a thumb drive within 14 days. So tonight we're going to be talking to Ty Clevenger about the Seth Rich case from the beginning to where we are today, for those of you who haven't been following along. Now, before we get to our conversation, let me tell you about tonight's sponsors. Our first sponsor tonight is Field of Greens. You guys know I love this stuff because it actually tastes really good. A lot of green drinks are like, ooh, thick, gloopy, gross, but this stuff is actually really good. It tastes like green tea. I like the lemon lime, so it tastes like a lemon-flavored green tea or green tea with lemon. You know, it's just iced, and it's smooth and it's got that consistency of tea, so it's not thick, it's not gloopy or anything like that. And Field of Greens is great because this is a very fine powder that is made from whole dehydrated fruits and vegetables that are carefully selected to give you the most nutrients in your diet possible. So all you do is you just take a scoop of this and you mix it into your ice water or maybe your iced tea, or if you want something like a chocolate shake, the regular flavor tastes really good in a chocolate shake. It kind of gives it a berry flavor. You can also use this in a variety of other ways, bake it into brownies or mix it into soup mixes, or, try it out in a variety of ways, get creative. But it's a great way to get all of your fruits and vegetables into your diet. We should be doing that. It's difficult to do. I know I definitely don't, but when I take Field of Greens, I genuinely, I'm not kidding you, I feel different. I have more energy. I sleep better. I feel healthier. It really does make a difference in the way I feel when I drink this drink. So try it out for yourself. You will get 15% off of your order when you go to fieldofgreens.com and you use the promo code Kim. Just try it out. And I'm telling you, you're going to do it and you're going to think, oh, how much of a difference can getting all my fruits and vegetables every day, how big of a difference does it make? And then believe me, when you start using Field of Greens every day, you're going to feel a difference. And then you take a day off and you're like, whoa, I feel it. So go to fieldofgreens.com, use the promo code Kim, and get 15% off your first order. All right, another sponsor for us tonight is Tax Network USA. I know that the IRS is making a huge push. They've already hired over 16,000 agents in the last few months. They say that they're going to be hiring a lot of people and they say they're going after the rich. That's what the Democrats keep saying, but we know that they're really just going to be going after all of us because we're the easy ones. We're not lawyered up like the way the rich people are. So, they're saying they want us to hire 87,000 new agents. And of course, they're going to be getting really aggressive. And so they're going to be levying bank accounts. They're going to be garnishing wages and Social Security benefits like never before. And they can even seize your property, like your business, your home, your retirement accounts. They can take anything of yours that they like, because that's how it is with the IRS. Now, if you owe back taxes or you have unfiled returns, don't run and don't let the government take advantage of you. Tax Network USA is a nationwide tax resolution firm who can protect your rights, settle your back taxes, and even in some cases, they can zero out your balance. They're experts in all IRS programs and understand how tax law works, so you don't have to. So over the last 14 years, Tax Network USA has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients. So regardless of if you have a payment arrangement already, they can help you, or whether you owe a few $1,000s or if you're lucky enough to owe a few million. Doesn't seem like that would make you lucky to owe a few million, but it just means you're making a lot of money. They can help you out. So even if you haven't filed in over 5 to 10 years, they can help you. So go to taxnetworkusa.com/Kim and get started. And, don't try to outsmart the IRS. Let the experts help you out and get that big burden off of your back. All right, guys, let's get to tonight's conversation. Ty Clevenger, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
I'm really curious what happened in this last ruling where the judge said that the FBI has 14 days to turn everything over. But I want to, for those who haven't been following, I have a lot of people watching the show who haven't been following this case, or they might have heard about it in passing but don't know all of the details. I want to start from the beginning of who Seth Rich is. What did he do at the DNC? Why there is this idea that he was the person who leaked the emails to WikiLeaks. So can you kind of start us from the beginning?
Sure, definitely. So Seth was working for the DNC. He was part of their voter registration effort at the DNC. He was murdered, as you mentioned, what's been described as a botched robbery, but his watch was not taken. His wallet was not taken. And so it doesn't look like a botched robbery. But pretty quickly after that murder, word started going around online that he played a role in the leak of the DNC emails. Not too long after that, about a month, 2 months later in August, Julian Assange did an interview on Dutch television and all but said that Seth was the source of the leaks. So that alone, you would think, would have given some credence to it, because prior to 2016, 2017, prior to 2016, Julian Assange was a hero. Mm-hmm. Not on the right, but on the left. And now it's kind of switched almost the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But the media were big fans of Julian Assange. Of course, he was responsible for publishing a lot of the documents from the Iraq War. But man, when he published the emails, or when WikiLeaks published the emails from the DNC, it was a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
But in any event,
can we just back it up just a little bit? Why would people
Sure.
even suspect that Seth Rich was the person to leak the emails in the first place before? Because I know Julian Assange was asked about Seth Rich, but then that idea had to have been there prior to even asking Julian Assange.
Yes.
So why did people even suspect Seth of all the people?
There were some anonymous posts online that started blaming the leak on Seth. So that was one of the earliest reasons, almost, within a day or two of his death. So pretty quickly, that was going around, but it wasn't attributed. So at that point, it wasn't really credible.
Mm-hmm. What was his job at the DNC to where he would maybe have access?
So he was in charge, or not necessarily in charge, but was involved in the voter registration efforts of the DNC. So he must have had some kind of access to the IT systems at the DNC. I don't know exactly why he would not have, or to what extent, but
yeah,
he clearly was working with a lot of data given the nature of his job.
Okay. So it's possible. But when they did the investigation, was there ever an investigation on? Because really, they just kind of and I say the establishment, the media, everybody kind of ran away with this whole Russia did it idea, and it seemed. And they for years, right? Were just rabid about Russia did it. Russia's done everything. It's all Russia's fault for everything. So they weren't looking at I would imagine, any other possibilities other than Russia, Russia, Russia. So did anybody even try to investigate to see who else maybe have leaked the emails other than Russia? Was there anything at all?
Great question. So, in his report, Robert Mueller, the special counsel, just made a perfunctory statement that Seth Rich had nothing to do with the email leaks. Didn't explain that, didn't say whether they had conducted any investigation into his electronic devices, just said he had no role in it. And what we've learned since that time is really damning. The FBI never investigated the Democratic National Committee's computer systems, ever. To this day, has not investigated the computer systems that supposedly were hacked. What they did was they allowed the Democratic National Committee to hire a private contractor, which was CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike went in, did its own investigation, and then gave the FBI a redacted report. That has never happened in the history of the FBI before or since. It's completely out of the ordinary. We now know that the FBI had a copy of Seth Rich's work computer. Well, if you want to find out whether Seth played a role, naturally you would look at that work computer that he would have been using to upload or download the emails. They never did. The FBI has come back and admitted they never looked at his work laptop. And another little sidebar to that, the FBI is claiming they should not have to release the work laptop because it's necessary to prosecute some of these Russian defendants. So on the one hand, they're saying they've never looked at the laptop. And on the other hand, they're saying it's evidence and we need to keep it to prosecute the Russian defendants. So their story just, it doesn't make any sense at
Yeah.
all. None
Yeah.
of it does.
Why do you think the FBI doesn't want to investigate this at all? Do you think it's because do they not want to like lend any credibility to the idea that Seth was murdered like in an assassination rather than just a botched robbery? They want to kind of say, oh, that's just a right-wing conspiracy theory, so we're not going to even entertain it. I mean, it just seems so.
I think that was it at one point.
Yeah.
I think there's more to it. I think there's more to it now, though. They are in so deep on this story. Egg on the face would not begin to describe it if they had to admit that they were completely wrong about this. And remember, John Durham, another special counsel, went back and looked at the whole Russia collusion fiasco, and he's the one who produced the evidence that the FBI took opposition research from Hillary Clinton's campaign, took that before courts, used that to get warrants, never disclosed to the courts. You know, this is political research that we got from his opposing candidate. Another sidebar, the CrowdStrike CEO, Sean Henry, testified in a congressional deposition that they had no concrete evidence that the Russians hacked the DNC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the guy who conducted the investigation, saying there's no concrete evidence. So you would think, given all of that, you would want to look for alternative explanations. I think they've known all along that Seth Rich was, in fact, the source of the leaks, but they have covered this up for going on 8 years now, and it would just be beyond embarrassing if they were to have to admit that.
Right, right. Even if, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Even if Seth was murdered in a botched robbery, it doesn't look good, right? And if it turns out that he really was the source of the leaks and then he dies in a botched robbery, people are never going to buy that he was killed in a botched robbery. They're going to think that this was an assassination. So they wouldn't, even if, let's just say it was just happened to be coincidental that happened. They know that no one would believe that. They know that would always cause a problem. So, and of course it is very suspicious. If it turns out that they could confirm he was the leaker, it's suspicious.
Yes. Well, if you've been sitting on his laptop since shortly after he was murdered and you've never even cracked it open to see what was on it, how do you defend that?
So they claim, right? I mean, they could lie to us like they usually, they often lie. So
that'd be the first time.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time. So let's get back to this. They haven't been able to prove that the Russians did it. They asserted that for so long. I mean, they asserted that the Russians did all kinds of stuff that they weren't able to ever prove. One of the things was about a digital timestamp or a digital footprint.
Yes.
Can you kind of explain? Do you know much about that? Can you explain
Sure.
that?
So, Bill Binney, who worked for the National Security Administration, was their technical director, a pioneer in some of their ability to intercept data, looked at the data from the purported hack of the DNC, and the rate of data transfer is far too high for it to have been a remote hack. It's consistent with the speeds that you would see, for example, downloading something onto a thumb drive.
Okay.
So it was locally, all the technical data indicates that it was locally down just too fast to have happened either by wireless or even internet connection. It was too fast for that.
Because
So
at
that's
that
one
time, I mean, maybe today we've got faster speeds or whatnot, but at that
right.
time, yeah.
Definitely not. And then
Okay.
there were file markings, and I'm not the technical guy. I would have to defer to Bill on that. But there were file markings on there to indicate that it was the way it was downloaded indicates that it was done onto a device as opposed to a remote hacking.
Okay. So maybe like a thumb drive or some sort of hard drive or something
Right.
like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But some people have said that's disputed because it was manipulated. They say that Guccifer 2.0 manipulated that data somehow to make it look like it happened locally. Have you heard that? It's kind of something that I read that there was like, oh, they did.
Yeah. The guys that I've talked to in that field say it's preposterous. That
Okay.
it's not a plausible explanation. Interestingly, we filed a FOIA request on the CIA
Hmm.
asking if the CIA was operating Guccifer 2.0, whether it was operating DC leaks, and also whether the CIA had inserted Russian fingerprints into some of these emails. And the CIA has refused to confirm or deny. You would expect, you would expect them to jump up and down and say we would never do anything like that, but no, they're
Right.
refusing to confirm or deny.
Well, you can't put anything past them. I mean, it's
No, no,
the
definitely not.
CIA of all the organizations. So there's a possibility that the CIA tried to put the footprint of the Russians into all of this to make it look like the Russians did it.
At first, I thought that was a bit of a reach, but now I think it's distinctly
Yeah.
possible that they deliberately tried to make this look like a Russian hack.
Well, when you're trying to wage war with Russia constantly, right?
Right,
These are the types of things. I mean, the false flag attempts in order to get us riled up and get us into war of some kind, another Cold War with Russia. I
right,
don't know. I don't know if we're looking for a hot war with them, but certainly a Cold War and certainly proxy wars, right? Like we're in right now.
right.
Um, yeah. So very, very odd. What is it? Tell us about the family. Have you talked to Seth Rich's family at all? Because they seem to reject any idea that this was anything other than a botched robbery. That's their stance on this. It seems. Am I right on that?
Yeah, totally. I have not talked to the family. In fact, the family sued my client, one of my clients, Ed Butowski, who had agreed to hire a private detective to help the family find the killer. Ed has previously said publicly that he spoke with Joel Rich, which is the father of Seth Rich, and that Joel Rich indicated that he knew what his sons, plural, had done. Now that Seth has a brother, Aaron. Aaron also sued my client, Ed Butowski, suggesting it was defamatory and that he would never do such a thing. Interestingly, after Aaron filed my client, I challenged Aaron to authorize WikiLeaks to reveal what it knew about any role that he or his brother played in the leaks. And to this day, Aaron will not authorize WikiLeaks to divulge whatever role he may have played. Um, my own suspicion, actually, backing up a little bit, there's somewhere along the way, Brad Bauman, who was a Democratic operative, was assigned to work with the Rich family. He claimed that he was doing it just as a pro bono charity effort. But according to Ed Butowski at the time, Joel Rich said Bauman was assigned to the family by the Democratic National Committee. My suspicion is that that the DNC or whomever told the rich family, look, you need to play along with us. One son is dead. Another could possibly charged with computer crimes.
Right.
So, you know, again, that's my suspicion at this point. I don't know how else to explain it because early on, the rich family was all in to find out what happened and who was responsible, and then they did a 180,
Yeah.
and that's the only explanation I can think of.
It is odd when I read about their reaction, how the kind of the string of events with them in particular, how they had, one person came forward that they were kind of working with on the Republican side of the aisle that then said, well, maybe it was the Russians that did it. And then they kind of quickly distanced themselves. And then another person said, well, it could have been, like they seem to be quick. It's to dismiss allegations, whether it be Russians or the DNC or whoever it is. I mean, if I were them, I'd be open to every and all possibilities. I mean, if I didn't know who killed my
Absolutely,
child, I'd be like, I
absolutely.
guess it could be anybody. It could have been for any reason. I just want to know who did it. But to
Well,
just
there's a lot of
dismiss,
really, yeah, and then there's a lot of fishy behavior, especially on the part of Aaron, because his brother gets murdered, and one of the first things he does is he goes to DC and takes the laptop home with him, and takes his brother's laptop home with. I mean, think about it. Somebody's just been murdered.
yeah,
You would think the DC police would immediately want to put their hands on that laptop. Instead, Aaron takes the thing home, and the DC police never really pushed to get their hands on that laptop. There's more evidence that I wish I could talk about that's under seal in a civil case in DC, but there's a lot of suspicious behavior. The cops, the DC cops, I mean, they're not looking to solve this case. They are, you know, just kind of sitting back and not rocking the boat and not asking any inconvenient questions.
yeah. So it is odd because they haven't asserted at all who did leak the emails, right? It's still kind of this unknown who leaked to WikiLeaks the emails, right? Like the Democrats aren't. I mean, they're saying it's the Russians,
Yes,
but or do they have a
right.
specific?
They're saying it's the Russians still. They've never abandoned that story.
Yeah, but
But
they don't have
again,
evidence of that.
they don't have any evidence. They don't have evidence. All we have is a heavily redacted CrowdStrike report and the CEO of the company saying under oath that we don't have any concrete evidence that these things were exfiltrated by the Russians or anybody else. So, you know, that's not evidence.
Right. And they haven't looked anywhere else. Do you know if they've asked any other staffers at the DNC? Have they investigated the DNC itself to see if there was a leak that came from inside the DNC, Seth Rich or not, just anybody at the DNC?
That I don't know. I've certainly not heard of them talking to anybody else about this. I would be shocked if they had.
But doesn't that seem just like the first place you would go? I mean, rather than
Absolutely.
thinking like
Yeah.
some Russians got in there and hacked and,
Right.
I mean, I would think that I would look at everybody who had access for the first place I would look is around the building first and foremost. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that they just ran away with this one idea and haven't looked anywhere else is, I mean, just, I, I mean,
Well,
I
so
guess it's
I
not
was a deputy
surprising.
sheriff. Years ago, I was a deputy sheriff, and I remember in the police academy, one of the first things they teach you or warn you about is the danger of tunnel vision and
Right.
locking in on one theory of the case and then blocking out all the other potential theories of the case. Um, this is either the worst case of tunnel vision in the history of homicide investigations, or this is deliberate. And I think it's the latter.
Yeah, even not looking at Seth Rich and his death, but just the leak. It seems like they would want to look
Right.
inside the DNC just to see was there somebody inside who leaked this information rather than it just going, nope, it was the Russians and it was the Russians. We believe that no matter what, even though we don't have any proof of that, it was still the Russians. We know it.
Even though Julian Assange is saying no, it wasn't the Russians. I
Right.
mean, he's still saying as recently as December, it wasn't the Russians, and nobody wants to listen to it.
Yeah, so what does Julian Assange say? So he says it wasn't the Russians. He actually says that. Or does he just say, I'm not going to reveal my sources?
So going back to 2016, August of 2016, he in that Dutch interview said that we go to great lengths to protect our sources, and in the same context announces a $20,000 reward for information leading to reward leading for a reward for leading to the arrest of people responsible for murdering Seth Rich. So I mean, he's pretty well
Right.
connected the dots right there. And since that time, he has never changed his story. That was before the family did the 180.
Okay.
He said a whole lot less. He basically went silent um, after that. But he's still telling Tucker Carlson that it's not the Russians. That
Not
it's
the
somebody. In
Russians.
fact, it's somebody inside the DNC.
Right. Right. And it could be somebody else, not just Seth and his brother, if his brother was
It could
involved, but it
be
could be somebody else also alongside Seth, or
right.
somebody else
Could be others.
entirely. Yeah. Yeah. But
It
they
all it
just,
all begs the question: why are we fighting so hard to keep from releasing any of this information? I mean, if the FBI is not trying to hide something, then why are they trying so hard to hide it?
right. Right. And same thing with the brother not allowing WikiLeaks to just divulge, because that would be like a confidentiality thing. So it would be telling to the media outlet, yes, I allow you to reveal your source. Is that what?
Yeah, I mean that's why I asked Aaron to do it through his lawyers. I asked his lawyers, even drafted an agreement because WikiLeaks, to its credit, is going to protect its sources to the bitter end. And so, unless somebody authorizes them to
Right.
do otherwise, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And Aaron is both the executor of his brother's estate, as well as an alleged source of the leaks himself. And yet he will not do it. I mean, he could put this to rest sooner than anybody else. And yet he goes around suing people and accusing them of terrible things, but he will not allow WikiLeaks to reveal what it knows.
And the fact that the FBI said they didn't want to give up Seth Rich's belongings for 66 years. So tell us about that. What led up to them saying we need 66 years, and why did they choose the number 66 years?
So they have a standard production rate of 500 pages per month, and they estimated based on the size of the data on the different devices, it would take a total of 60, actually almost 67 years to produce everything in page form. Um, and so we've gone back to the judge and cited other cases where they've been ordered to produce at a much faster rate. And so that's what we're trying to get out of them.
Okay, so then what? So that when did that happen? When did they come back and say we need 66 years? Kind of walk us through where this case where it
Sure.
began and how it got to that point.
So, yeah, originally I filed a case in New York under my own name in 2017, and the FBI came back and said they had no records whatsoever about Seth Rich, none.
Okay, so you filed
Um,
like a Freedom of Information Act asking for Seth
right,
Rich information, and they came back saying we don't have
exactly.
anything.
They said they did not have anything.
Okay.
So it just so happened around the same, not long after I filed that case, there was a federal prosecutor who retired. She had been assigned to the murder case. She gave an interview, and she said she had provided information about Seth Rich to the FBI. Simultaneously, Judicial Watch had sought emails between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the two FBI agents. And lo and behold, in one of those emails, there's discussion of Seth Rich. So I went back to the court and said, clearly there's some records here. The court in New York just denied it and shut the case anyway. So we refiled in Texas, and this judge has been a little more demanding that the FBI actually produce documents. So let's see, actually 2022, in the
Hmm.
fall of 22, the judge ordered them to produce the personal laptop of Seth Rich or its contents. And we've been fighting back and forth for over a year now. They've not produced anything from any of the electronic devices.
And that's when they said we need 66 years.
Yeah, yeah. They said to produce everything from the electronic devices would take them 60, 66, almost 67 years.
Okay, so then fast forward to this past late November. So just this past Thanksgiving, around that time, the judge ruled that they had to turn over these belongings. What was it that they have to turn over? And they have 14 days to do it. So that's the personal laptop and the work laptop, a DVD, a thumb drive, all within 2 weeks.
Right. 4 items. He gave them, well, actually, what he gave them 2 weeks to do was to produce a production schedule. So he ordered the FBI to confer with us and for us to propose a production schedule. We had asked for 14 days total. He said that's way too fast. He said 67 years is way too long.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to meet and propose something.
Well, I hope it's not
So,
in the middle because I don't want to wait 33
oh, yeah,
years,
no.
right? I mean,
Exactly.
meet
I'll
in the
still be
middle,
dead in
33 years,
33 years.
right?
Right. Yeah. So there's, we still don't have a production schedule yet. But anyway, he gave us 14 days to do that. They said they needed more time. We agreed to give them another 30 days. And then they waited until the last day, which was last Thursday, when we were, and I've been trying the whole time to confer with them. And I told them, here's what we're thinking. We want the metadata first. They waited the last day. Don't propose anything. They just tell the court, we're going to file a motion for reconsideration, and we want you to give us until February 8th to do that. And meanwhile, they're not going to do what the court told them to do.
Okay, so when did you find out? Because in the beginning they said we don't have anything. So when did you find out they had the personal laptop? That was after then somebody had said, just kind of
So we
walking
knew
through
that.
this timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been, I believe, 2019 was when Deborah Sines, the former federal prosecutor, gave the interview talking about the laptop. So that's
Okay.
when we knew at that point for sure.
That they had that. So I mean, did you watch that interview and your jaw just dropped? You're like, they lied and they said they didn't have
Yeah,
anything.
absolutely. Yeah. Well,
What kind of
it's mind-boggling.
consequences? It is mind-boggling. Why are there any consequences for them lying?
Not so far. In fact, I'm hoping Congress will make some changes to the FOIA statute because there are no criminal penalties, and there should be.
Right.
Some people really need to, at the very least, be fined, sanctioned for what they've done, because they've been caught lying over and over, and they have no incentive to stop because there are no consequences
Yeah.
when they do it.
Right. If they just sit there and say, we don't have anything, Freedom of Information Act, we don't have anything. And then you find out in an interview, oh, yeah, they do. They have so did you find out in that interview they just had the personal laptop or also the work laptop?
That one only discussed the personal laptop. But then when we started getting some of the 302 forms, which is a standard FBI form, that made reference to the work laptop. So that's when we knew they had two laptops and not
Okay.
one.
What's the DVD?
We don't know what's on the DVD. I've asked him if they could give me an idea. Is this video? Is this another laptop image? They won't tell me.
So, but you just know that they have a DVD. So
That's all I know.
So they're starting to say some stuff. When did they divulge that they had the DVD? I mean, they're starting to. Was that after a judge told? Because the Freedom of Information Act, they said we don't have anything. Then how did you get? When you found out from the interview that they had the personal laptop, what was your next step after that to get them to admit this? Did you had to go to court?
Sort of. I've joked that the work laptop was being kept on the same shelf as the Hunter Biden laptop because they claimed that it was only after I pressed them on this issue that they went and found not just the work laptop, but they found this DVD and the tape drive. So apparently there's some electronic storage room where they put things, and if they really get pressed into a corner, then they say, oh yeah, we might have it back here in the
Right.
storage room.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how a person goes about this. So how did you pressure them? What mechanism did you, I mean, because I can't walk into the FBI headquarters and be like, hey, I filed
Right.
a Freedom of Information Act. You guys lied. So now you need to tell me the truth. What's the mechanism you use in order to get
You've
them
got
to
to
then
sue 'em.
admit this?
You
have to sue
always
them.
have
Okay.
to sue 'em.
Okay.
They're going to lie and cheat, and they're not going to give you anything. Well, they may do the same even if you sue them, but the only chance you have of getting information out of the FBI is filing a lawsuit.
Okay. So you sued them and then they had to come
Right.
forward with this information at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is really, and I know you're dealing with other Freedom of Information Act requests. You've got other cases that are not related to this, I think, that you're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah. So it is, I mean, that the whole ability for us to be able to do that is, it seems like it's our legal right as citizens, a legal right, not just like, oh, isn't it nice? You can come in and you can ask politely for something and we'll give it to you. It's our legal right, and yet they're skirting this legal right, and they then only come forward with the information after a judge, a court forces them to do it in that
And
setting.
sometimes not even then. Sometimes not even then.
Sometimes not even then. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
there's
they
just no accountability at all. I mean, it seems like somebody would have to go
exactly
to jail. I feel like if I lied, right, if I lied to the government or under oath, I go to jail. But
right,
they can lie
right.
to us, even though it's our legal right to have this information, and nothing happens to them.
That's a far. Yeah, it's and there's even sworn declarations. For example, there are senior personnel who put in declarations in support of their motions, saying we searched here and here, and we, looked at this place or another. And some of those declarations clearly have false statements
Yeah.
in them. And so far, there have not been any consequences for that. Now we may ask this judge to sanction the FBI. We're not there yet, but that's definitely a possibility.
But even then, so if you sanction them, what happens?
Well, that's a great question. So if you sanction the FBI itself, they use the taxpayers' money to pay the sanction.
Yeah.
What I would like to see this judge do is to start sanctioning the people who have put in the false declarations to the court,
Yeah.
and holding them responsible.
Yeah.
You reminded me of something and this will give you an idea of just how bad the FBI's record practices are. They have an index where they purportedly enter in any records that they deem to be, and this is a quote, of sufficient significance, whatever that means. So if an FBI agent in the field decides that an email is not of sufficient significance, then he or she does not put that into this index system. So all you have to do is, if you've got a hot potato case like Seth Rich, you just, and this is what they've acknowledged in this case, is they just say, well, it's not of sufficient significance, so we didn't put it in the index. Now, if I'm representing a corporate party or any private party, and we're in discovery, you've got to search email systems, you've got to search text messages. The FBI does not have to do that, or at least nobody's made them do it thus far. They just go to this index system. And so it's very clear that the FBI uses this. It's a fraud. The whole system is a fraud. They only put into that index system what they want us to see. Everything else they leave out. And that's how they can take possession of somebody's laptop and claim that they have no record of it.
And the fact that they have all of this, right, is kind of, I mean, the fact that they have it, they have the personal laptop, they have a work laptop, they've got a DVD and a thumb drive. The fact that they're and then they say, oh, but we're not investigating, there's nothing to see here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
Well, they also conducted interviews. There were agents in Las Vegas and in California who were out interviewing witnesses. We still don't know exactly what those interviews were about because they redacted most of the interview forms. But this is where Congress absolutely needs to get involved, right? And so far, unfortunately, Jim Jordan has not shown an interest on the House Judiciary Committee pursuing this further. Interestingly, Devin Nunes, who was the House Intelligence Chairman, told me that when this was going on, when he was chairman, the FBI assured him there was nothing to this Seth Rich stuff. And, they had other fires to fight, so they didn't push it further. But clearly they've been lying to Congress as well. It's not just lying to private citizens.
if there was one thing they were going to lie about, it would be this. I mean, it just seems, compared to, so Devin Nunes could sit there and have a conversation with the FBI, like, hey, are you guys, you know anything about this? You know anything about that? I mean, they might give him the truth on certain things, but on this particular thing, the implications of this are massive. This is not just your run of the mill, are you guys investigating XYZ thing? This is more dangerous than even Russian hacking, into something. I mean, this is the implication of this is that somebody in the DNC or with Hillary Clinton's team or whoever that had something to benefit or grievance assassinated somebody who leaked information. I mean, this is which, you know what, is believable in a lot of ways, because when you look at how Hillary Clinton talked about Julian Assange, right? How can we
Right.
just drone him?
Right.
Um,
Right.
this is the type of so they don't have any problem with
It's
assassinating. I
the
mean, there was
mindset.
right, and it's not just on the Democratic side either. You got Mike Pompeo, who was trying to figure out a
Right.
way to assassinate Julian Assange.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's not far-fetched. If they sit there and they say, oh, this is just a wild conspiracy theory and you people are all nuts, really? Because it's not far-fetched that they would assassinate leakers when they've attempted it twice or they've discussed it about Julian Assange. So what else are they
Well,
willing to do?
I've said all, yeah, I've said all along that I don't know who killed Seth, and I don't. But if we get solid proof that he was the source of the leaks, that is going to force the hand, I hope, of the Metropolitan Police and the FBI and whomever to actually investigate the murder.
Yeah,
Because without going into some of that sealed evidence, I can tell you the Metropolitan Police Department investigation in DC is a joke. It's an absolute joke. The mere fact that they would allow somebody to take the murder victim's laptop away and not even demand its return, that tells you a lot right there. They were not interested
right.
in getting to the bottom of this.
Right. And even if Seth was, I mean, like the plot could thicken, right? If you find out Seth really had nothing to do at all with the leaks, it could be, I mean, just it's like watching a murder mystery on, in a movie or a television show. It could be maybe there was another DNC staffer who did the leaks, and then
Right.
they felt like, oh no, they might find out it's me, so we got to turn him in. Maybe then they plotted the murder in order to deflect from them being the one looked at, and then they kind of plotted on Reddit the idea that it was Seth who did it, so that I mean, who knows, right? I mean, but we don't know until we know, and that's why we have
There
to
are a lot of
investigate.
angles, very interesting angles. I mean, you alluded to one. Um, the Awan brothers got a lot of attention, and what was that? It was around 2016 because they were running the computer systems for the Democrats on Capitol Hill. They were accused. They were Pakistanis. They were accused of being Pakistani agents. What a lot of people don't know is they were also running the IT systems at the Democratic National Committee.
Mm,
So and again, I don't know, but these are facts that ought to be investigated.
yeah,
You imagine if you're a Pakistani intelligence agent and you've infiltrated the Democratic National Committee, and now some 27-year-old idealistic kid is about to blow your cover or has blown your cover, that might be an incentive to murder somebody.
right.
Again, I'm not saying that happened. I don't know. I'm just saying these angles absolutely need to be investigated.
Right. It's not just that he was absolutely the leaker. He might not have been, but he might have been on to the leaker. He might have just been a
Sure.
decoy for the leaker, right? I mean,
Right.
or he could have had nothing to do with it at all, but you don't know unless you investigate. I mean, that's
Right. Exactly.
that's the entire
Exactly.
point. Most people, I put this poll out on my Twitter account, just kind of asking people randomly who they think killed Seth Rich, and the vast majority of people, 75% or more, say that they think the DNC and Hillary Clinton. I asked, "What do you think it was a botched robbery? DNC, Hillary Clinton, Russians, or haven't been following?" About 20% of people haven't been following. The rest think that it was DNC or Hillary Clinton that did it. Very few people, 1% or 2%, think it was a botched robbery or the Russians. So there's a lot of people. But that being said, and I kind of want to get to this. So first of all, to just kind of finish up this part of it before I move on to the censorship about this case, but the so at this point you haven't received anything. You don't have the personal laptop. You don't have the work laptop. You don't have the DVD. You don't have the thumb drive. They're punting. They're saying, give us till February 8th. Is that right? To what do they
To
want?
file, actually they didn't even ask the court. They just kind of told the court, by February 8th, we're going to file a motion asking you to reconsider your opinion. So in other words, we're not going to do what you told us to, Your Honor, because you got this wrong. So we're going to come back a few weeks later and explain to you why you got it wrong. In the meantime, you'll just have to sit on your order because we're not doing it.
What can the judge do? Can the judge say, excuse me? No, you have to.
He could absolutely drop them in the grease if he wanted to. This is one of those exceedingly rare occasions where it's to our disadvantage to have a judge who's calm and level-headed. which he is. Judge Mazan is a good judge. He's even-handed and he's patient, which normally I would want in a judge. But I am hoping that his patience lapses soon because it's getting pretty outrageous.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a heavily censored topic. It's censored on social media, censored on YouTube. You can't really find anything about this. If you do a search on YouTube for Seth Rich, it's all, wacko conspiracy theorists think this, but it was a
Yeah.
botched robbery, right? That's
The
kind of
same
that's
way
what's
with
out there.
Google. Yeah, Google's the same way. The
Yeah.
major search engines all the same way. Yeah.
Facebook,
Yeah.
you can't say anything about Seth Rich, get in
Right.
trouble.
Yeah, I've stopped trying to post on my Facebook account because it gets censored every time I try to put it up there.
At the same time, not only has there been censorship all around, which is always suspicious, right? I mean, anytime they censor a topic, that in and of itself, the act of censoring the topic is highly suspicious.
People with nothing to hide don't try to hide nothing. So, yeah.
I mean, we're allowed to
It's
talk about all kinds. If they think it's a wild conspiracy theory, then let us have a wild conspiracy theory. I mean, we could talk
right.
about flat Earth. We could talk about Bigfoot. I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories they allow to circulate
Right,
around.
but this one obviously is threatening to somebody. It's very threatening to somebody.
Otherwise, they wouldn't let us. They wouldn't be censoring. So,
Right.
and what we've found so far, just kind of the way it's been with other censorship attempts, is usually the things they censor, it's because the people who are talking are correct, when they, or at least are onto something. It's like the lab leak
Right.
with COVID, you weren't allowed to talk about that at all. And now they're like, well, maybe there's something to it. January 6th was heavily censored. People that were there at the protest saying this wasn't an insurrection. This was not, that's not what I saw when I was there. That got censored. They were ripped off of YouTube. Their channels were demonetized, these journalists that were there. So whenever they censor something, it often is because they are trying to push us into a certain narrative that they have,
Yes.
a narrative that they are dead set on. And what they're dead set on is the Russians did this. That's what they're dead set on.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Even though, as we discussed, I mean, their evidence is completely cratered. The CEO of CrowdStrike, who conducted the investigation, is admitting they don't have any concrete evidence. And that's all they've got. Just keep pounding on that dead horse, Russia, Russia, Russia.
There's also been a lot of lawsuits. This gets me a little nervous because I see that there was like a lawsuit against Fox News. There's been some other lawsuits. Can you tell us like some of, what are they, am I going to get sued for talking about this? I'm a little nervous. I might be calling you up for your services.
It's a great question. This case really opened my eyes to what I believe is a phenomenon that's going on in multiple, on multiple fronts now. And that is a hyper aggressive litigation strategy where these big firm lawyers affiliated with the Democratic National Committee just sued everybody into silence. At one point, so one of my clients was being sued along with Fox News, which is in the same case. And I wrote an email begging the lawyers for Fox News, wait till we get this information from the FBI, because we know that the FBI has been withholding information. It now looks like there's a reason they were withholding it. Let's get this information before you settle anything. They completely ignored me, rushed ahead to settle, which Fox News is controlled opposition in my book. But the point being that they get these big firms to sue people, intimidate people, and silence people.
Mm-hmm.
They silenced two of my clients. They silenced the Washington Times. The Washington Times will not run any stories whatsoever about Seth Rich. Fox News will not run any stories about Seth Rich. If we get the smoking gun through this FOIA case and the DOJ admits that, yes, Seth Rich was the source of the leaks, Washington Times and Fox News are not going to be able to report that story. That's how over the top this litigation campaign has been.
Yeah, it's there's definitely been a lot of look at what's happening to Trump. There's a lot of litigation in order to keep a person from doing the things that they don't, it's a strategy. It's an interesting strategy of not only are we going to, they realize the censorship doesn't work as well anymore. People are onto that.
Right.
They think, oh, if you're going to silence something and censor something. And now for a long time, they used the label. They didn't even need to censor. What they would do is they would just call you a conspiracy theorist, right? So they would just
Right.
smear.
Right.
They did a lot of smearing of
Right.
people and character assassination. Then it's
Absolutely.
turned more into censorship on social media, really going after them in that way. And now, and they did this even with Trump. I mean, you could see the timeline even with him. It was character assassination, then it was censorship, and now it's litigation. And
Right.
they did that even with the J6 stuff, or with not even J6, but just the
Voting
election.
equipment. They've done
Yeah,
the same.
yeah,
Yeah,
right,
same thing with
right.
voting equipment. These two ladies in Georgia who worked for the election officials in Atlanta, they've sued different publications. They sued Rudy Giuliani. They got, I think, $100+ million verdict in a rigged case in D.C. It's an overarching campaign to scare everybody into silence.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, I mean, you've been sued by this giant firm out of Washington, D.C. It's costing you everything you own. You're about to lose your retirement in your house. Then, yeah, you will be willing to settle and agree to never talk about this again and retract whatever you've said just to protect yourself.
Right, right. And it looks like this lawsuit, just kind of looking at the one from Fox News, that it was Seth Rich's family who sued Fox News, saying that it was emotionally distressing and fueled conspiracy theories. That was a dismissed lawsuit. But then the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Second Circuit overturned the dismissal, saying that
Yeah,
the
that was a
Riches.
wild case. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So the,
saying that
the judge who dismissed it,
yeah, go ahead.
the judge who dismissed it is a Clinton appointee, so he was not a Republican. Um, he applied the traditional legal approach to those kinds of cases, and essentially, you can't bring a defamation case on behalf of a dead person. That person can only bring it on his or her behalf while he or she is alive. And the Second Circuit basically re-engineered that and said, well, you can bring it as an intentional affliction of emotional distress claim instead of a
Right.
defamation claim. So they effectively rewrote the law.
Right, which I think is what ended up getting Alex Jones. It seems like maybe in Sandy Hook case it's similar. It seems similar to me. I'd have to look in that and see if that's how they were able to sue Alex Jones and win a case against him. I don't know if that preceded this or.
I'll be candid. I have not followed that case, so I can't give an
Right.
intelligent.
I haven't followed it too much either, but I know that it was about emotional distress. It was about
Right.
conspiracy theories and whatnot. And so, which to me was also just a case that, I've never watched an episode of Alex Jones. I don't even know what he really said about Sandy Hook or anything like that. But I just know that a person should be, you should be able to say things and not. I mean, we should have a standard of First Amendment. That's just the way I think
You're on the side of free speech.
Right. Yeah, I'm on the side of free speech. But it looks like this was overturned, and then the judge said that the Riches plausibly alleged what amounted to a campaign of emotional torture. And that's so I don't know. The Fox News did reach a settlement with the Rich family, and the settlement was not disclosed. That is very frightening. It's frightening that you can't even run news reports or talk about these subjects without being sued by these families or these, maybe it has to do with I don't know. It's very scary. It's scary for me. It's scary. It's scary that
That's the case I was
at.
talking about, where I encouraged the lawyers for Fox News to wait
Yeah.
and to get this evidence from the FBI, and Fox was in a rush to settle this and get this over with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you've got a reporter, Malia Zimmerman, who was working for Fox News, who had her career and her reputation destroyed by this for the crime of reporting on a controversial story.
Yeah.
That's somehow supposed to be, emotional distress, that you're causing someone emotional distress by writing a story about a public event. I mean, it's dangerous territory.
Right. But I mean, if it's just truthful information, I mean, what, you're talking about, there's a lack of investigation. You've filed a Freedom of Information Act request. Now there's a lawsuit. I mean, these things are actual news. They're not misinformation. It's not fake news. These are events that are actually happening. and they should be able to be reported on without there being some sort of consequence to that, of like, oh, how dare
Right.
you even mention it? So we are in a very frightening situation, unfortunately, with you. And again, it's just suspicious. It just creates even more suspicion.
Absolutely. The more they do this stuff, the guiltier they look. They're not doing themselves any favors.
Yeah, yeah. So what is the next step now? I mean, is it just a waiting game with this latest with them with the court, the FBI saying we need until February 8th, or what's happening?
Yeah, that's so. Of course, we don't know what Judge Mazan is going to do. I think he's going to do. I think he's going to order them to start producing documents. I think his patience is worn out. But there are other avenues. We will probably be filing a separate lawsuit, maybe two separate lawsuits, based on some of the sealed evidence that I mentioned that I can't talk about. Um, we think that stuff opens another avenue of litigation to try to get at the bottom of things. So probably within the next couple of months, there will be more cases filed.
Oh, okay. Well, I know a lot of people are very, suspicious and interested in this story. I know a lot of people would and I think it's fair to the American people, honestly, more than anything. What's fair to the American people is finding out who hacked into the DNC and got the emails, because they have been alleging it's Russia. They have used our tax dollars, millions and millions of our tax dollars, on pursuing the theory that it was Russia, and we deserve answers. If at the
Yeah, and,
minimum.
and that goes back to your earlier point. The level of scandal that would come out of this. They spent that much money, and if it comes out that they were sitting on Seth Rich's laptop the whole time and it proved that he was the source of the leaks, and they spent 20, 30 million bucks on these wild goose chases, it's going to be real hard for them to justify.
Yeah, it really will be. Or if it was anybody else inside of the DNC, it's like, guys, I mean, you spent
Right.
all your time and effort and money, taxpayer dollars, on this one theory. You ran with it. Nothing came of it. And you didn't look anywhere else. Are you kidding me? Like, that is the biggest failure of an investigation. It seems like
Absolutely.
investigations 101, right? Investigate
Right, right,
everybody. Look
absolutely.
everywhere.
Right,
See where it could
right.
have come from. And
Everybody's guilty until proven otherwise.
yeah, exactly. And not only that, but it seems like if they want to clear Seth Rich, the conspiracy theories or whatever of Seth Rich being involved, the way you would do that is investigation and releasing of the
Right,
information, not just a blanket. Oh no, he didn't have anything to do with it. Believe me, trust me, trust me,
right.
right?
We're from the government. Trust us.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for being on tonight and talking about this. Is there anything
Sure.
else we're
Thank
kind of
you.
missing, or did that kind of is that encapsulating everything that's gone on with this?
I think you covered, yeah, the vast majority of it. There's a kind of related issue that I mentioned CrowdStrike,
Uh huh.
and how they relied on the CrowdStrike reports. We That's part of our FOIA request. We asked to see the CrowdStrike reports, and they gave us the cover page of each report, and that was it. Nothing more than the cover page. And so we're fighting to actually get the reports. And as it turns out, they had already released or disclosed part of those reports somewhere else. And so if you look at what they had disclosed, it's clear they're making totally inappropriate redactions.
Hmm.
There's no way you can say there's not a single sentence in the entire report that's not subject to disclosure, and yet that's what they're saying. So hopefully, pretty soon we'll get more on the
Wow.
CrowdStrike reports.
Well, thank you again. Good luck. We will,
Sure, thank
I'll
you.
definitely keep checking in to see if there's any progress on this. And if there is, I definitely would like to report on it, as much as there's, craziness going on with lawsuits and, silencing techniques and censorship. I mean, we just, the information is information. Everybody
Right,
deserves information, and then people can make their own decisions with that information. But that's not what they want. They don't want us to
exactly.
have any of that. No
Right.
information for you. Ty, thank you again for being here. Where
Thank
can do?
you.
Is there like something that people can do? Can they like? Is there fundraising at all? Is there anything that the viewer can
Not right
help
now.
with? Okay.
Um, I've got a Twitter account. That's about it. We haven't been fundraising, at least not lately. But
Okay.
that may change. We're talking about setting up a new nonprofit to go after some of this kind of stuff, so that may change.
Okay. All right. Well, I will link to your Twitter account down below so that people can continue following you. I know that you'll keep things updated on Twitter. I know that you say things here and
Definitely.
there about what's happening. So thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Okay. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
All right, guys, that is it for tonight's show. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, this show is no longer going to be at this time. You can still watch it at this time. It will be here. It's not going to go anywhere. But the live stream of this show is going to be made available to you much, much earlier in the day, starting on Monday. So starting on Monday, this show will be available to you to watch at any time, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then you can watch it live when we stream it at that time, or you can consume it throughout your day, however you want to do it. It's going to be better for you because it's going to be more flexible. You can, like I said, watch it at your leisure when you feel like it. It's going to be early for me. I am on the West Coast, so I'm going to get up early, really early, and get the show ready for you guys. But it's going to be better, and that does start this coming Monday. So this coming Monday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That is the new show time for the Kim Iverson Show. It will no longer be a night show. I won't be saying good night to you. It's going to be a shift. I'm nervous, but I think I'm ready. I'm going to drink a lot of coffee, drink my field of greens. I'm going to have all my energy. I'm going to be good to go. All right, guys, we will see you Monday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have a great weekend. Good night.